The judge presiding over the New York State prosecution of Luigi Mangione has reached a decision regarding the contents of Mangione's backpack that were seized the day he was arrested and whether or not they can be used at trial. But what exactly did the judge decide, and who does it favor? May it please the viewers, I'm Rich Schoenstein. Welcome back to So Sue Me, the podcast about civil litigation. I know technically the Luigi Mangione case is not civil litigation, but it's a big-time trial happening right downtown here in New York City, and I am compelled to follow it and report, especially when we get a 17-page decision from Justice Gregory Caro. As you may have heard, the judge ruled that the gun found in Mangione's backpack can be used as evidence. As you may have also heard, the judge rules that some key evidence in the Luigi Mangione state trial must be suppressed. Or, as somebody else put it, judge allows key evidence in Luigi Mangione's New York murder trial. Judge in Luigi Mangione's New York case says gun notebook can be used as evidence in state trial. All of these things are true. All of those statements are true because the actual decision, which we see here, is a bit of a mixed result. Now, I'm not going to read you a 17-page decision. I'm not going to quote you excerpts from it. I'm not going to go through it. I flash it up here so you know that I've read it. And if you want to read it, you can find it on the internet, but I'm just going to tell you what the judge had to say, because it breaks down actually pretty simply. When Luigi Mangione was arrested in Altoona, Pennsylvania, the backpack was somewhat searched at the scene in the McDonald's restaurant where he was located and arrested. You may recall somebody called in a tip. A couple officers came and checked it out. They thought he looked like the guy in New York. They summoned in more officers. There was some looking in his backpack at that McDonald's. After that, Mangione was taken into custody. He was brought to the police station. The backpack was brought to the police station where it was completely emptied out and inventoried in the course of arresting Luigi Mangione. Essentially, Judge Caro has said that the search at McDonald's was bad, but the search at the police station was okay. In order to justify the search at the McDonald's, prosecutors had argued that the police needed to search the backpack because there was concern it might contain a dangerous item like a bomb or a gun. And the judge didn't really buy that. The judge said no one was looking for a bomb. Nobody cleared out the McDonald's. Nobody did anything else that you would do if you thought a bomb was present. And by the way, if you thought there was a bomb in the backpack, you wouldn't just stick your arm in and start rooting around. I mean, that never made a lot of sense. So the judge didn't buy the bomb argument. The gun argument is a little bit better. Indeed, there was a gun in the backpack, but the backpack had already been taken away from Luigi Mangione. So it wasn't like patting down a suspect where you think they might have a gun on them that they're going to pull out and use. Here, he wasn't going to be allowed access to his backpack, so if there was a gun in there, it didn't matter. So the judge found that the search at the McDonald's wasn't justified, was done without a warrant, and therefore is suppressing the evidence that was found at the McDonald's. And that includes the magazine, the bullet thing that you put in a gun. Bullet thing tells you how much I know about guns. His cell phone, his passport, his wallet, and a computer chip. None of that evidence can be used at trial because it was part of an illegal search. But after that, when Mangione was taken to the police station, his backpack was inventoried. And with respect to that search, Judge Caro found that it was lawful. It comported with policy and standard process in Altoona for inventory belongings of somebody taken into custody. And therefore, at that time, it was appropriate to go into the backpack, look around, and write down what was found. And that's really important because it was in the police station that police found the gun, the silencer, and the notebook that allegedly contains writings of Luigi Mangione expressing his problems with the insurance industry and tying together why he might have been motivated to kill Brian Thompson on the street in Fifth Avenue in New York. So, two different searches. The search at McDonald's, no good. You have to suppress the magazine. You have to suppress the cell phone. You have to suppress the computer chip. But the search inventorying in Altoona is okay. And therefore, it's okay to put in the gun, the silencer, and the notebook. And by the way, there was some argument about whether they went too far looking at the notebook because they photographed every page. The judge said photographing every page was okay. That was consistent with inventorying the notebook. They weren't really reading it. They were just photographing it for the record. I don't know about that, but that's what the judge decided. So that evidence is in. Now, there was one other part of this, which is the question of statements Luigi Mangione made. And essentially, the judge bifurcated that as well. Initially, he was approached by two officers and allegedly falsely identified himself as somebody else. That evidence is admissible because the judge found he wasn't in custody yet. Subsequently, 8 other police officers show up at the scene. He's surrounded. There's much more heated proceedings, and the judge said at that point he was effectively in custody. Miranda should have been read, and if it wasn't, any statements that were made, and apparently he did talk to some officers at the scene, those statements are not coming into evidence because he had not yet been given his Miranda rights. And that sounds right to me. You know, the first time you're spoken to by a police officer, you're not in custody. You don't necessarily have a right. It's not like the police officer has to walk up to you and say, you have the right to remain silent. That only happens upon arrest or when you're taken into custody, which clearly he was at some point. So there you have it. Bifurcated, split decisions, so to speak, with respect to the backpack and the statement. Now, who won? Well, I will tell you, bottom line, the prosecution is the big winner here. I saw some things on the internet indicating that some of the evidence had been stricken and suggesting that Luigi Mangione had obtained some victory. And it is difficult to exclude evidence, and his lawyers are doing a great job, a very thorough job, a very laudable job as defense attorneys. But this decision favors the prosecution. The gun, the silencer, and the notebook were the most important things in his backpack. It would have been nice to have the magazine. It's a little weird that the gun's in evidence and the magazine isn't. It would have been nice, I think, to have the cell phone. I imagine there's evidence on the cell phone they would have found useful. I don't know what's on this computer chip, but the gun, the silencer, and the notebook, or manifesto, as some have called it, those are key pieces of evidence that are central to the prosecution of Luigi Mangione. So the fact that those materials can be exhibited to the jury in the course of this prosecution is a huge win for the prosecution. There's no way around it. If anybody is telling you this was a good day for Luigi Mangione, it's not. He gets a little victory, but it's a Pyrrhic victory. It's a partial victory on the less meaningful parts of this. A little helpful to keep some of the statements out, but the fact that he falsely identified himself to police, that gets to come in. The other evidence gets to come in. Now, does it have any implication to the federal case? Yes and no. The judge in the federal case ruled that all of the evidence in the backpack can come into evidence. And this ruling by the state court judge doesn't change the ruling of the federal court judge. However, the state trial goes first. And if the suppression of this evidence was to assist Luigi Mangione in obtaining a not guilty verdict, an acquittal, then he would argue that precludes the federal prosecution as a matter of double jeopardy. To the extent it favors him, that evidentiary ruling could have implications, but it doesn't directly bind the admission of the evidence in the federal case. The state case, as you know, is set to be tried starting in September. The federal case is set to be tried starting in January. We'll see if those dates hold. They've gotten pushed back on occasion. We'll see if this decision motivates Luigi Mangione's team to have any kind of discussions with the government about a resolution of the case. I have no idea if there have been such discussions, where they stand. I don't know if prosecutors are interested in a plea deal. The defense team, just to remind you, has done a great job here. In the state case, they were able to fight off and get dismissed the terrorism-related charges. So in the state case, the highest possible penalty is life in prison with the opportunity of parole. And that's because it's murder in the second degree under state law, since there is no terrorism charge remaining in the case. In the federal case, the defense team was able to get rid of the death penalty, took that off of the table. There's no death penalty enhancement. Now, in the federal case, the highest penalty is life in prison without the possibility of parole. So state case with possibility of parole, federal case without possibility of parole. But in each prosecution, the defense team has managed to fight off the higher levels, the extent to which the prosecutors were really pushing the case. And they have been able now to keep out some evidence, although, as I said, not the most meaningful, not the most important evidence. But the defense team is a very solid team. We know them in New York. They're very well-known defense lawyers, and they seem to be doing a good job for their client here, which is important. Luigi Mangione is presumed innocent until proven guilty, and the defense team has to do everything they can to make sure that only appropriate evidence gets into the case, to make sure that Luigi Mangione gets his due process rights, to make sure he gets his day in court, to make sure he doesn't have to have two trials right on top of each other. That would be an unfair process. They're taking care of all of those items to try to give him the fairest trial possible. New York State Court, there'll be a lot of attention paid jury selection in both the federal and the state cases, because that's going to be really important here. Remember, we have people out there who think Luigi Mangione is a hero. We have people who think he's innocent and has been framed, and we have people who are dead set committed to convicting him. And really, none of those people should be allowed on a jury. Everybody on the jury should be neutral enough that they will listen to the evidence and render a fair decision. And that's very hard to find. And again, the defense only needs one to stop a conviction. Better if they can get an acquittal, better if they can get the jury to agree on that. But to prevent a conviction, they only ever need one juror who doesn't think the evidence proves guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. A lot more to come in the Luigi Mangione case, but I thought this was an important decision worth exploring. I will continue to cover the case, whether or not this is a podcast about civil litigation, but we'll also be back soon to talk about some civil litigation. Thank you all for watching. Like us, subscribe to us, do all of that stuff. See you soon. For now, we are adjourned.